Victoria, the show is the opinion, and this is Michael J. How are you folks doing? Today's the day. Mark Carney, net zero, Brookfield stripe. Conspiracy theories are going to be debunked. It's about time, people, that you woke up. That's correct. You woke up. Conservative Republican, conservative Republican, and I say that because where's Danielle Smith's second home? Washington. Down there with all the Republicans. So, we're going to discuss moose on the loose. Oil manipulating for profits. Oil companies making themselves rich, making the people poor, leaving the people cleaning up after the rich have taken their riches and left. You people just keep buying into this nonsense and you don't know what is going on. Use your own discernment. Learn what truth is truth. And be careful what you listen to. Simple as that. So we're going to start with moose on the loose. What can I say? Carney's net zero energy project debunked by chemists with 35 years of experience. Moose on the loose, 150,000 subscribers, 5.3K, so 5,300 thumbs up. A lot of people buy into this stuff. They can't think for themselves. The Sam Cooper, here's another one. We're not going there yet. So let's start with moose on the loose.
Decarbonized oil. That doesn't exist, obviously. That is a gross contradiction.
Fasten your
Big
seatbelts,
energy
folks.
projects, boom or bust. What are we going to see here in Canada? Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got an interview with Rosemary Barton and Tim Hodgson talking about green hydrogen, carbon capture. I've got other clips to contradict this interview to show you how stupid it is, because we've got a chemical engineer with 35 years of experience who debunks green hydrogen. On top of that, we've got a handful of other stories. Let's jump into this. Yesterday, there was a parade in America for their 250th anniversary, as well as Donald Trump's birthday. And now there's people protesting across Canada against Donald Trump in places like Ottawa, when Donald Trump is going to be in Kananaskis. Protesting him in Ottawa seems silly, but...
Well, if I can be honest, I'm terrified. I'm up here, which is, I'm safe for now. But I feel like a lot of people in the U.S. understand that what's happening in the United States right now is very similar to what was happening in Germany in the 1930s.
As a dual citizen, I am extremely concerned that the country that I lived in for most of my life is under a dictatorship. And my concern is that he will take over Canada.
These people are so extreme. Donald Trump's not going to come steal our water and steal our land and steal everything.
Canadian protest organizers say peaceful, no time.
Really? The guy ripped up an agreement with Iran in 2018 that allowed the world community to investigate and keep track of any uranium enrichment programs in Iran. Donald J. Trump, Agent Orange, ripped up the agreement. Gotta remind you, Putin's puppet. Whoever would have thought? Russians controlling America. So, now you've got the Israelis bombing Iran. And funniest thing about it all is that 20,000 drones that were meant to go to Ukraine to help out Zelensky ward off Putin went to the Middle East just before the Israeli raid on Iran. Isn't that ironic? You really got to watch what's going on here, Moose.
Tyrant rallies are being held in solidarity with the U.S. protests and in reaction to the Trump administration that has cracked down on free speech, detained people for their political views, and threats to deport American citizens with military force. Now, today,
these protesters think Donald Trump's going to come round up Canadians, and it is nutty. That's not what's going to happen. Now, it is possible and seems likely he's using economic force to gain access to our critical resources, our oil and gas, critical minerals at a bargain barrel price. but he's not going to just round up and capture people and send his goons all across Canada, capturing people with nets. Big, bad, scary Donald Trump. It's ridiculous. These people are being goofy. Embarrassing crowd. Why protest in Canada? Exactly. How ridiculous. We need to pay attention to local governments, as this is where things happen that directly affect citizens. Talking about Trump, who is thousands of hours away, is ridiculous. Why are they protesting a leader of a different country? This one right here.
Florida is only a 3-hour flight from Canada, so...
This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, ever. Next up, we got this on Parliament Hill. I like the quote here from Chris Stacey. A whole bunch of question marks. Why are all these Calistanis standing on Parliament Hill? Why? Well, the bright side, at least they're not chanting for the end of Modi right now. Chris Stacey has other clips, I can't show them, but a bunch of these guys are standing here on Parliament Hill with religious pokey pokes, swords, other pokey pokes. Chris Stacey confronted the police and said, why are these guys walking around with swords hanging from their belts? They're allowed because they're religious. Isn't that ridiculous? They don't allow hockey sticks or flag poles, but they can walk around with swords. Our country is stupid. They are mad Modi is coming to town. Yeah, they are mad. I'm surprised they don't have their little jail set up there that they usually put on those trucks, chanting for his end. Next up, we got this interview here from Tim Hodgson, Rosemary Barton on CBC. He says quite a bit here. This guy's going to double and triple down on Mark Carney's agenda, net zero, so they can all get rich off of this.
It will need to honor our obligations to climate change.
You've talked about a grand bargain to describe what will happen with the country in Alberta, as has the Premier of Alberta. What does that mean? That we're going to get more pipeline?
Okay, so we're going to move on. We're only going to cover a couple of things here with Moose, and then I'll go into what I need to go into. So we're going to move on to moving forward. And this is where we need to be.
One of them is obviously carbon capture and carbon sequestration. One of the things that was talked about was if we were going to move forward with a pipeline.
Oh, before we get into this, let's debunk one thing, because this is going to come up. Maybe I'll bring it up after. Let's do this.
One of the things that was talked about was if we were going to move forward with a pipeline, it would be done in conjunction with a major effort around carbon sequestration.
And that's because they can make money off that, because Brookfield dominates that industry. And these guys are all a bunch of greedy schmucks who don't care about Canadians, only care about the bottom line, how much money they pull into their own bank accounts. You don't have to trust me. It's all on the board here. Everything's backed with sources. Mark Carney, board member of Stripe founding member of the Frontier Group. Frontier Group got $1 billion from Alphabet, Shopify, Meta, and McKinsey to create this carbon credit market, essentially providing money up front so they don't go bust. And these carbon credits get created into low integrity and high integrity removals. What Brookfield would be targeting here is these high integrity, direct air capture, all these kind of things that the average person couldn't do. These generate high value carbon credits, which get sold to companies like oil companies, who then can say they have green oil. Their oil is not any different. They just paid someone to say that their oil is better now because they paid for someone else to pull CO2 out of the air. This is all a big scam. And on the back end of it, you've got all these guys like Mark Carney, Michael Moritz, who used to be former partner of Sequoia Capital, all investing money into Stripe being at the epicenter of this, as well as other people all invested in Stripe into carbon capture to create a market that if they can get everyone on board, then the company who has the biggest foothold in carbon capture, Brookfield, would make the most amount of money off of it. And who's got stock options in Brookfield and probably a whole bunch of stocks? It's Mark Carney. In this next clip, he's going to explain how much energy.
Okay, so here we go. This is the first conspiracy theory debunked, and this is Stripe, Brookfield, and Mark Carney being the guy that's the friggin' head of Brookfield. Like, come on now. You people got to wake up here. Now, let's take a look at here. Let's take a look at this. How much is Brookfield worth? It's worth a lot. Who are the largest shareholders of Brookfield? Partners Value is number one. It's an investment LP. Number 2 is a guy by the name of Sam Pollock. You ever heard of the Montreal Canadiens? Well, Brian Lawson, Jeffrey Bildner. You've never heard of any of these guys, have you? Let's start from the bottom, work up. Blydner. Brookfield Resources. Chairman of Brookfield Renewable. Damn, your name's not Mark Carney? Who would have thought? And this guy's the number 3 guy. Number 2 guy, Brian Lawson, Chancellor of Trinity College. He's the number 2 guy. Funny thing is, I had a family member that worked for Brascan, which we're going to get into how Brascan, evolved from the Brazilian Light and Power Company, and I've brought this up before. And Trinity College, another family member gave a shitload of money. It was a donation to Trinity College. There's a lot more going on here than you realize, and I'm not going to get into today. And then Sam Pollock. Can you believe this? Canadian sports executive, general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. He was GM during the days of Scotty Bowman. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? And I managed to skate with Dick Duff and Peter Mahovlich, so I know a little bit about Montreal Canadiens. So there you go. Now, here's Brookfield. Big company. Geographical breakdown. You say, oh, wow. Look at that. Since 2021, they've actually invested more into Canada. Everybody says, well, they've moved out and they've located in the States. Well, they have an exposure all over the world. First and foremost in the United States, United Kingdom number 2, Canada number 3. So get over yourselves, folks. Now, here's the original start of this company. And I've said this before because I knew a guy that worked for Brascan. But anyways, and I knew a few other people, so we're not going to get into that. But 1959, 2 brothers from the Brothman family, Peter and Edward, if I remember right. Pretty sure it was. But anyways, the other 2 brothers formed another company. They went off on their own and ended up with the Seagram's fortune. So this is what happened. The company, the Brothman family, split. And the other ones invested in Domtar, later Seagram's. This side of the brothers, or the family, Edinburgh Investments, original company that catapulted them was the Brazilian Traction Light and Power Company, which they bought in 1959. And then Brascan had a big presence in Brazil as well. So there's that. Funny thing is, Mark Carney's not in the top anywhere here. He doesn't control anything. Like anybody else that works for these big companies, you get stock options as a form of payment. And if the stock options do well, you do well. Now here we are here. The Brothman family, Peter and Edward, I got it right, Peter and Edward, were instrumental in the early development of Brookfield. They don't own it in the traditional sense today. Brookfield has evolved from a company built by the Brothman brothers and Jack Cockwell into a publicly traded global asset manager. The Brothmans' influence waned as the company restructured, and eventually they sold their remaining shares. Like it's a public company. Carney doesn't own it. Like, Moose, get over yourself. Now, Stripe's a financial services company. Guys from, I think they're from California. Yeah, company's based in California, but they're Irishmen. Couple Irish guys, younger guys, 2010. So Stripe's been known for doing online payment systems, and it's been around for a while. A lot of people invested in it, so, here's another friggin' rabbit hole you're being friggin' taken down. Like, get over it. Stripe is a multinational financial services software company, so yeah, software as a service. That's what SaaS actually means. But anyways, the two guys from Ireland, young guys initially, started it. And it's morphed into a very large company. It does a lot of business. And entered in partnerships with different partnerships, Ford Motors, Spotify. But, you guys just friggin' get over the roof in these, making these conspiracy theories. Don't kid yourself. There's a few at the top that get to know one another and they work together because they trust one another just like you do in your social circle. It's just the way things work. What do you think happened with, what's his name? Conrad Black with his newspaper business. A buddy of mine went to school with him. And then Upper Canada College later. Like, you just do not understand what's going on. So here's these guys, Stripe co-founder, CEO Patrick Collison. They're operating out of California. Mark Carney does not own this company. The guy from Sequoia Financial does not own this company. Like, this is just friggin' nonsense stuff. Now, here we're going to get into, you want to do big oil. Big oil has manipulated the world and the country for a long time, since the 1800s. John D. Rockefeller, Standard Oil. They're still manipulating you. Oil is not an infinite resource. When it's gone, and you still need oil. And so many generations of people in the future are going to need oil still. This is why it's important to change our behaviors, patterns, and loops in a way that helps the climate. This is going to be a tough one to wrap your head around. The climate. Can you imagine that? Climate. Isn't that something? You think climate change is nothing? Climate change is something. Now, Rockefeller, Standard Oil manipulated the industry because they owned actually 90% of the American oil business at one time. But people are still programmed. You are being programmed, and you're being programmed by Moose on the Loose here. You don't realize it. And even in Alberta, the people of Alberta are being programmed. Like, oil is the salvation of the peoples. Oil will make you rich. Understand one thing. Historically, it's made the companies rich and the benefactors of those oil companies rich. It's left the people poorer and poorer. And who cleans up the mess? The taxpayer, which is the people. That's the way it's been. That's the reality of things. This is what you have to understand. So, oil companies and the benefactors of oil have created a false narrative and created a false belief for and within the people. And understand, you're going to say, well, woke. Woke is awareness, not voodoo. You're being programmed. Oil companies get rich. People are left poor, left cleaning up the mess. So Carney, Brookfield, Stripe, this is a conspiracy. This is just drama. This is subterfuge, conjecture that has no real merit, that's being made up. Now we've got this green existing hydrogen. Now here's the thing. Hydrogen's really tricky. It's a new thing. It's the cleanest thing going as far as output, because It does zero damage to the environment. But to produce it, it's tricky. And there's a long way to go before you can produce it. And then the only way to do it initially is do it with renewable energies from the excess from wind and solar. But we've still got a way to go to learn how to store it in a financial way that gets costs down. And there's still a lot of work to be done in that part. But it can be done. And we've seen it with the bitumen, which is the Alberta oil sands. So it can be done, but you have to make that first step. So this is where we're at, and this is where we're going. So am I going to get any further into this? No, this is enough. Moose, you've said too much. People will leave links. You can watch it. You can make your own decisions. Learn where the truth is and what is truth. Oh, one other thing. Yeah, one other thing, because he's going to bring up this friggin' WWF. WWF. I'm going to put a link for this too. And this is what really dangerous, because he's going to tell you that WWF, Canada's already zero carbon, which is friggin' absolute crap. It's really absolute crap. But here's one of the most interesting things. When we look at, and you want to put pipelines up to Churchill and various other places, and that'll end up really destroying more of this here. It can be done up to Churchill, and this is going to be a different topic for a different video. But the point of this here is this, we're already at zero carbon here in Canada. That's nonsense. That does not exist. That's bullshit, and don't buy into it. Moose, calling you out, you're totally wrong. But one of the most interesting things of this study by the WWF is large carbon storage areas are often found in Indigenous territories. So the Moose has disparaged the Indigenous people, why we even consider them, he says, or infers. So large carbon storage areas are often found in Indigenous territories as a result of millennia of responsible management. And this is the key element here. Millennia of responsible management by Indigenous peoples. I brought this up before. A guy I know that mid-1990s, second time in 100 years, World Religion Festival or get-together conference in Chicago. Dalai Lama was there. Pope, everybody of any significance in the religious community was there. When he came back, he told me, Michael, the most interesting guy was an Indigenous gentleman. They understand the symbiotic relationship with man, nature, and the universe. It's the white man that gets into these friggin'... You're being programmed. You have to learn what is real and what's not real. Don't give your power away to other people. Learn what is real and what is not real. Use discernment to calculate with thought and reason. And those are important things, thought and reason. Get away from this judgment, ascend judgment, and come to truths that benefit everybody. So I'm going to leave that with you. Comments in the comments section. Love and peace to everyone. Take care. Talk to you all soon. Ciao.